G'day guys, next install on the next gen Ranger behind me. I've got Fab here next to me that's done some amazing electrical work on the Caravan previously. And we're going to put in a dual battery system here on the next gen. Some of you might know in my previous Pajero, I had a little portable Dometic battery that was good for sort of 1 to 2 nights, but it did have its limitations. So we're going to put in a dual system today. The gear's been provided by Vicoffroad. So I've got Fab doing the install. We'll go through a bit of the process today and take you through everything.
Putting a 100 amp hour battery in it to run his fridge so it can be self-sufficient with just his cool drinks and whatnot. So we're going to start the install. We're going to remove the seat, so we're going to fit the battery behind the seat and the DCDC on the other side of the seat. So there you go. Should
be good. Yeah, and I've done a bit of a DIY install on a bracket. There are some aftermarket ones around if you do a bit of searching, but I've done a bit of a DIY today with some MDF. Hopefully it's nothing too serious today. It should be pretty simple. We're not putting in an inverter or anything like that. Today is a DCDC going in, and there's something called a smart hub, which allows us to monitor voltage in the system. It's all going to come down to where we can actually fit things, because there is quite a narrow window to work with behind the seat. It's pretty tight. So yeah, a bit of a test and see what sort of happens. But yeah, let's get into it, and hope you enjoy it. So just at home with the kids, and we've got a few bits and pieces that we bought from Bunnings today to do the install of the bracket that's going to support our battery. I'll flip around and show you what we've got. Okay, we've got a 900 by 450 by 16 millimeter piece of MDF. Max is modeling our piece of ply. Okay, this one here is 140 by 19 mil by 1.2. I've bought some liquid nails. We've got some M8 bolts, which are going to support the bottom of our bracket. Some M8 washers. I've got a couple of wood screws. I've got a 60 mil and 75 mil. Undecided which ones I'm going to use yet, but they'll be used to support the MDF and ply coming together. And we've got a couple of these small little brackets here, which will just help give it extra little bit of support. Finally, we've got our quick grip. Now that's going to be used to put our marine carpet, just some thin marine carpet, onto our MDF. We have about 1 meter of this marine carpet. So we've got Izzy here just measuring up. So I think 70 mils is going to be the perfect width here. Just a shout out to Braden at 4x4 Camping Adventures. Thanks, mate. So he installed the same battery recently on his Ranger and provided me a bit of support on how to approach this. Bit of a progress update here. I've assembled the backing and the base, screwed it together, a couple of brackets to support and some liquid nails. So pretty simple, but I'll leave that now overnight and come back tomorrow and I'll carpet it. So I'm working into the night, which is quite often the way these things go when you're doing DIY mods. I finished the bracket and now I want to align the bolts, and that was one of the questions for me, is that how do I actually align the bolts so when I screw it all down it's in the right position. There's 2 potential spots you can mount the bracket here if you don't want to drill or put any bolts in. So one is the child anchor point on the driver's side, and the other is underneath where the original jack is located. That's got a threaded nut as well. So I'm going to use both of those for this. So if you are putting a battery behind the seat like I am, you will need to relocate the jack. I've got mine in the tray at the moment. One of the questions for me is how do I actually line this thing up and work out where the holes need to go. What I've actually done, and I'm not sure if this is the right way, it's just the way I've approached it. I've used some builder's line. I've just run that down sort of vertically and horizontally, so I can see when I put the bracket against it, I can see where I need to drill. Feel free to have fun with me and let me know if I've done it wrong, but it seems to have worked, and I'll show you what I've done. So this is what I've used to help me line up the drill points. So I've just drilled out one point there. Now above that you'll see I've got some wire running vertically and to the side horizontally. So when I can put my bracket up there, I can actually see I can run a line down from the top and I can draw a line from the side. where those two lines intersect is where I need to drill. Now the mounting point where the jack was originally was just under the bottom there, so I'll be doing exactly the same thing as before. You'll see there's some builder's line down the bottom. Okay, here's the wall that's carpeted behind the rear seats. You'll see a couple of just relief cuts that I've made. Okay, on the driver's side, so just made one here. Now the reason I've done that is just so I can just sort of pop these edges back and it can sit flush. There's just a little switch behind there, so you don't want to put too much pressure on that area, but it was quite bulgy before, which would have been an issue. And on the left here as well, I've done the same. So I'm going to keep this shape here, which has the bulge, as you can see, but I've just put this little relief cut in at the top, so it can just sit that little bit flusher. There is a filter just in behind there, so keeping that all factory, but just allowing me to fit my MDF board behind here. So back on the bracket today, a bit of a mission trying to get those two bolts to align, top and bottom, but I've managed to get it there. I'll show you what it looks like just with the battery sitting in position. It's not bolted down yet, but that'll be the final step, and then I'll get on to carpeting. What I've had to do is there are these two rubber stoppers that sit behind the rear chair, one there, one on the other side. And I've just had to remove those. It just gives that extra little bit of clearance, because what I was running into is the latch here for the chair just wasn't quite clipping in as I'd hoped. So it does go in now. It does need a firm slam to get it into place, but it's not rubbing or catching, which is good. Yes, that's the top bolt. The bottom bolt, I'll show you in a minute, sits underneath the battery. So I'll show you what I've done at the bottom of the bracket now. I've essentially cut out a slot where I can put my socket and my driver in and tighten that bottom bolt up, because access is a little bit tricky down at the bottom. So having that slot just makes sure I could get my socket in. So there's the slot I've cut away. You can see I've got my M8 bolt and a little square washer that I've used to secure that down. I also added a little strip of MDF on the back there just to give it something to grab onto, and attach that with a couple of screws. Okay, so a little bit of paint just added around the edges. I'm just going to carpet the flat areas on the back. Okay, so a bit of an update. We've decided to put in a smart shunt in this vehicle. So we've gone with the Victron 500 amp shunt. Now the reason for that is just space. We're actually quite limited for room. And I actually use these tubs here on the ground for storage. So Fab here has kindly kind of manufactured a new bracket here to fit the DCDC. Yeah, we just don't have room for the smart hub. We're very limited for room. So we're going to install the battery and the DCDC, which are obviously the two most important items, and we'll run the Victron shunt. Yeah, thanks to Sean at 4x4 Extras in Wangara. He actually made me a nice little panel here that'll just go in the corner here.
What's the moment? Alright.
Okay, so what are we doing at the moment?
We're using the dipstick to pull it up the through hole for the wiring. I'll try and run the cable through for the DCDC. Power that up. We need an 8 BNS cable run, and it goes through the drywall grommet. It's a bit tricky to dig them out.
Yeah, Fab's just running the wiring now for the solar input. So most of the wiring is through now, so it's the fun job that Babs had to do.
Yeah, great fun.
He was saying it was quite tight to get all the wires through, but and there's a few other accessories I've already got on the vehicles. It makes the space a little bit limited, but it's all sort of coming together now, and we can wire it up. So our wires are now through. So does it get a little bit easier now?
It gets much easier now. Cable running always is the hardest bit. Termination is actually quite easy. We're linking up the 100 amp hour battery now. So we're doing the wiring to it, and then we'll terminate the last bit to the battery at the front.
We were just joking where would we be without cable ties. I found the answer, Fab.
Yeah, what was it?
So when do you think cable ties were invented?
I'm going to guess 88.
1956.
Oh my goodness. I cried. I can't remember either, Prentice.
Mate, you're probably ready to go home, but what's the latest?
I was just about ready to fire it up, so it's ready to go any minute now.
Yeah, Fab's done a great job today. So as you can see behind me, got a 100 amp hour lithium phosphate battery there. We've got a DCDC, and we've also put in a shunt. Hey, what up, mate? Looks really good.
Oh yeah, that's so close.
That's good. Okay, so we're just doing a bit of a test. This is the Victron app. Okay, I'm gonna pop in the Anderson plug there for my fridge. Drawing about 1.19 amps at the moment. So everything is working as it should. Okay, as you can tell from the light around us, it's now evening. So it's been a whole day affair. We ran into a few issues with the mount that I made, or the bracket that the lithium battery sits on. It was slightly too wide at the bottom, so we had to do a bit of trimming to get the seat back in the vehicle. So that was a bit of fun.
It was fun, wasn't it? We enjoyed ourselves.
But look, it's a really neat install. Fab's done an amazing job, but it was a full day kind of installation, wasn't it?
Yes.
So, but you've done
worth it.
Well, yeah, worth it. Now you've done a next gen. So if any of you are looking to get yours done, I'll drop the link in the description. You can check out Fab. So we've gone with a 100 amp hour lithium battery in this Ranger. That's more than sufficient for what I'll need to use it for. I mean, generally this will be running a fridge, running some auxiliary lights, those sort of things. So 100 amp hour is amazing. We've also got a 40 amp DCDC. Now, actually quite a cool little feature on this DCDC. It's got what's called a recharge function. So if your main battery is actually running low, you can actually top it back up, which is pretty cool. So there's our DCDC. We've got our Victron SmartShunt there and our Atem Power battery. It is quite a tight fit in the rear of this Ranger. If I was to do the bracket all over again, I might have made it a little bit thinner. We did have to trim the bottom section of the bracket just to make sure that the seat went in okay, because you don't have a lot of room to play with. So look, if you've got the time to create a bracket, it will save you a few bucks, but if you just want a simple fit, have a look online, because there are a few options to actually put in a metal bracket that's made for the car, but it will cost you a bit more money. The bracket that I've added in here probably cost me about 60 bucks in materials. We'll just talk about the switch panel in the rear of this Ranger as well and what we've done. We've got a couple of Anderson plugs here just at the bottom. This one here on the left is actually a solar input, so I'll put a label on that, but that will allow me to top up the battery with my portable solar blanket. I've got a standard Anderson outlet which will run my fridge, two sort of SIGGI sockets, 12 volt here. I've got the button to control my electric slide just here. I've also got the provision for two light switches here. Now they're not actually wired up at the moment, but I'm thinking probably putting some lights just on the back of the sports bar at some stage. These batteries are actually pretty affordable, so you'll see on the screen here the retail price for those. Big thanks to Vicoffroad for the opportunity to test out these products in the next gen. Looking forward to getting them out on a trip and seeing how they all perform.
Yeah.